Once you sign on the dotted line with your divorce, there's no do-overs. There's no going back.
Hello and welcome to the enlightenHer YouTube channel. I'm Elena Carberry and I'm here today with Heather Hetchler, and we're excited to have Heather share the 3 blind spots, money blind spots that we often see women post-divorce run into. So Heather, what do you see most often in women who've come out of divorce and didn't see this coming?
Well, thanks for asking, because this is for the woman who is considering divorce, in the middle of the divorce, and post-divorce. So divorce changes many things for women, but one of the biggest surprises that I found that women undergo through a divorce isn't the emotional. They expect divorce to be an emotional journey. It's financial. Divorce is the biggest financial decision a woman will ever make, whether she chooses the divorce or the divorce is put upon her. And I hear so often from clients, I hear them say, I thought I knew our money. I trusted that everything was covered. I didn't think I needed to know every detail of our finances. And then the divorce happens, and they are left scrambling to figure out what their financial situation is. And this is where the blind spots come into focus. And so today I want to talk to you about the 3 most common financial blind spots that women encounter and how to protect yourself before the divorce happens. The first blind spot that I wanted to share with you is not knowing where the money actually lives. And this might sound very simple to you, but I want you to listen in. Many women know their paycheck or their husband's paycheck. They know the household money, but they don't know the accounts. They don't know the passwords. They don't know some of the debts. They don't know the long-term obligations. They don't know that information. They don't know who manages what's automatically being paid, and whose name is tied to what account. Protection for you starts with visibility. It's not about controlling your finances. It's about having clarity around your finances, about knowing all those details and knowing where your accounts are, where they exist, and how to have access to them right now. So Melina, I wanted to kind of toss it back to you. What do you think about that blind spot, and what advice would you have?
Yeah, I think it is a very real blind spot. Women often are confronted with divorce, whether by their choice or it's put upon them. And if they haven't had a seat at the table in their family's finances, and I'm not just talking, I think to your point, about the cash flow, the spending, the kind of what's coming in, what's going out on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis, but the actual finances of your household. That requires you to have a seat at the table, whether that's sitting down with your husband or sitting down with your husband and your financial planner to say, hey, be a part of those conversations, understand what you have, where it's at, how the planning that has been done for your family. I think it is so important, and we see too often that women come to this divorce crossroads unprepared with that financial knowledge. So I think it's too prevalent, and hopefully we can start to change it.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to have these conversations. And one of the things I wanted to talk about before I move on to blind spot number 2 is, if you are somebody who hasn't been involved and you haven't had those conversations, and maybe you're considering initiating the divorce, and you want to get ahead of this, it is important to sit down and get all that information. And I share with you a conversation I had with a client once where she did initiate the conversation, and her husband took real offense to it, like, why do you need to know? Why do you want to know on the finances? Don't you trust me? And she came back to the table with him and said, I want to understand. I'm not accusing you of anything, because it can be very difficult if your husband is used to running everything. If you start to change your involvement or your questioning, it can come as a protective thing. Your spouse is like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But it is important to sit down, and we can help you with those conversations, how to set a boundary, how to initiate those conversations so that you can start to gain access and understanding of where your finances are. Blind spot number 2 is underestimating how stress will impact your financial decisions. Divorce does create an emotional overload. And so even the most intelligent, capable women can make emotionally charged decisions that aren't financially smart during a divorce. And probably the number one decision that I see women make is holding on to something that they have an emotional connection to that isn't wise financially. Most often, that's the house. And so there's going to be some financial decisions that might feel really good in the moment, like I want to keep the house. Maybe it's because you have children and you want to keep things as normal as possible, and I understand that completely. But sometimes keeping the house is a today good decision, but not a healthy tomorrow or future decision. So really working with somebody who can help you understand what decisions are going to look like today, but also how they're going to look 5, 10, 15 years out. Because once you sign on the dotted line with your divorce, there's no do-overs. There's no going back. And so there's a lot of grieving and emotional in the divorce and saying, you know, I may want the house, I may want the car, I may want, you know, my husband's great-grandmother's hutch that she promised me. But I have to let go of these things to make sound financial decisions today. And what I want to encourage women is that protection looks like slowing decisions down. Decisions don't have to be made in the now. And it is important to understand too, and this is a different mindset shift that is important for a woman who's going through divorce, is that your spouse is no longer sitting on the same side of the table as you are. And you may want to believe that he's going to make decisions in your best interest or in the kid's best interest, but that's not always true. He most likely has somebody else kind of, you know, that he's talking to, whether it's an attorney or a financial planner or friends and family who are thinking about his interests first. And you have to have a trusted support group that you can bounce ideas off of and that you can make decisions with. And I will tell you that if you are ever rushed to sign or make a financial decision, that is a red flag to say, no, I need to slow down, I need to think about this, I need to sleep on this, and I will give you an answer. Maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's in a week, but protecting yourself is slowing down and getting that neutral sport, because remember, urgency is emotional, it's not financial. And Lynn, what would you share on that?
There's so many things that you said
I know.
that I thought like, ooh, there's so much here. So I think about one of the ways that we present a woman in divorce. So we present her to try to shift her thinking. This is so much of what this is about. We're not going to be able to give you every answer for your particular situation today, but we want to help shift your thinking so that you can come to this process unencumbered.
Yes.
Like let's bring a different focus. So when you think about your divorce process, so maybe your lifespan is represented by this, you know, whatever this 2 feet of timeline here is. Your divorce process is about this much of this. This is your life. This is your divorce process. So I think it's really important to keep that perspective,
Yes.
and that's what I hear Heather sharing. It's this perspective, we don't want to feel rushed or highly emotionally charged in our decision making in this process, because what it's going to do, these decisions impact the rest of your life. So we want you to slow down. Another thing that came to mind is divorce can only move as fast as the slowest person, and it is okay if you are the slowest person. A lot of times the kind of conventionally termed the non-moneyed spouse, that's the person who hasn't been in charge of the money, tends to be one of the slower moving pieces of the equation, because you have to get caught up. You have to educate yourself and get caught up on where you are. Maybe that means pulling in some people to help you with that so that you can make sound decisions that are going to shape the rest of your life.
Absolutely, that's great. And I love the visual of like, it really is like this piece feels so huge.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody says I do, believing it's going to become I don't. But understanding that those decisions you make there will affect all of your tomorrows.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of women who have made those decisions and are dealing with the repercussions of making an emotional decision financially. So moving on to blind spot number 3, this is believing that I'll deal with it later is a plan. After divorce, most women will put themselves last, and that often means rebuilding credit, updating their beneficiaries, planning their futures, because they're focused on everyone else surviving. They're focused on them getting through the day, getting to the next thing. But let me tell you that later costs more. Later costs more. And so what you put off is going to cost you more financially and emotionally. And needing financial clarity does not mean that you failed. Okay, working and getting help does not mean that you failed. It means that you're human and that you understand that you need help walking through this process. And empowerment is not about blaming, it's about preparing. Getting empowered on how to walk through the divorce, whether you initiated it or it was put upon you. So whether you're married, divorced, or in the process of rebuilding, financial confidence is one of the greatest forms of self-respect you can ever give yourself. And so I want to encourage you to give that to yourself as you're going through this. And Elena, would you like to share?
Yeah, I love the idea of this is to me a bigger message of enlightenHer, and that is let's not keep our heads in the sand. So to me that I'll deal with it later, it's just putting your head in the sand and saying I don't want to deal with it today. But to Heather's point, later is expensive. Come to the table, learn about these things, make informed choices, deal with it today. Let's get our heads out of the sand and let's start to embrace these things that maybe we haven't been taught, we haven't been a part of, but we can learn. That is another big message of enlightenHer, is the ability, these are skills that we can learn. And so I agree wholeheartedly. The other thing that I would like to add to that kind of keeping your head in the sand or dealing with it later, we see this too much with alimony. So if you are going to be receiving alimony, you're not earning equally in the household, or perhaps some women are the breadwinners who are paying alimony. So I'm talking to the woman who is under earning within the household, meaning that someone's going to be paying her alimony. So we see women just ride that out. They don't prepare for what's coming. That alimony will end. You need to have a plan. So again, dealing with it later is going to really cause problems if it comes to ramping up your income, having a plan for how you're going to pay your bills when that alimony ends. This is where we see women who maybe got a good settlement have to end up spending that settlement once their alimony runs out because they have no other way to live, and now their retirement plan is dwindling. So just kind of along those lines, a real tactical thing that we see way too often that frustrates the heck out of me, and I'm here to help women start to think about that now before they find themselves in that position.
That is excellent advice, and we do unfortunately see that all too
Yeah.
often, and it is important to plan for your tomorrow. So if this episode resonated with you, or you have a friend or family member that's walking through a divorce, I want to encourage you to share this with them. I want to encourage you to actually sit and watch this over again. And if you are interested in going deeper in talking through a little bit more about what you need to know, how we can help guide you, I'd encourage you to click the link in the show notes so that you can set up a free money mindset coaching call with me. I will personally be talking to you and working with you, and I can also share with you some of the other free resources that we have on our enlightenHer.com page that are created specifically for you, as well as an amazing divorce course that we put together that covers the emotional, financial, and legal decisions that a woman must make when she faces divorce.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Heather, for your insight and for all the knowledge that you bring to the table. Thank you for joining us today. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe our channel. Please follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, we are on Instagram, and check out the channel for more great videos